Previously, we talked about an overview of the integrated design project, covering the scopes to be carried out in the first semesters of the integrated design project. This includes the project feasibility study, soil investigations, structural plans, engineering plans, water reticulation plan, and the environmental impact assessment. We talk about their linkage as well as the respective functions within a development project. The plans and the reports are to be submitted to the local authorities, water supply agencies, as well as the departments of environment for evaluations and approval. You will need to fulfill their requirements as a part to simulate the industrial applications. In these videos, we're going to continue with the overview of the integrated design project, which is to be carried out in the second semesters of the integrated design project, covering the bills of quantities, master work program, tender or contract document, site safety and health planning report, construction's quality assurance plans, as well as the project cash flow and revenue. Let us start with the bills of quantities. A bill of quantity is a document used in the tendering process for a development project in the construction industry, where the materials, parts, and labels are itemized, inviting the contractors to bid for the project. In order to produce the bills of quantities, you will need to refer to the relevant plans, the structural plan, engineering plans, water reticulation plans, and etc. The contents in those plans are itemized, and the quantities of the materials are estimated in order to work out the bills of quantities. And then the bills of quantity, it will be a part of the tender document, inviting the contractors to bid and participate in the project. Based on the bills of quantities, the contractors shall bid the price to be considered by the employer for the employer to select the best contractors to carry out the construction project. Summing up the costs for the bills of quantities, that shall give you the contract sum. Among several contractors who bid for the project, the employer shall choose one which deems to be giving the best offers to the employer to be awarded with the contract. Now, the definitions of the best offer may not necessarily the lowest price quoted by the contractor. There may be other considerations, such as the reputations, as well as the competency of the contractor in carrying out the work. Once it is selected, the employer shall enter a contract with the contractor. Within the contract documents, the contract sums as well as the requirements in terms of the specifications of the materials, qualities and standards, as well as the project durations, are all clearly specified. This shall outline the responsibilities as well as the obligations of the contractors, as well as the employers to the contractor for that particular project. To have the tender and the contract document produced, you will need to refer to a standard form of contract. For example, PAN Contract 2018. The standard form of contract provides the conditions of the contract to be complied with by both parties, the employer as well as the contractor, keeping the conditions transparent and being fair to both parties regarding their rights as well as their obligations. that constitute the first half of the tender and the contract document. The second half, it will involve the specifications of the project, such as the requirements of the materials, standards, as well as the method statements for the project. Therefore, you will need the method statements of the construction process as well as the technical specifications to be incorporated in the tenders and the contract document. Now, where do you get the technical specifications? You will need to refer to the design by the engineers. How about the method statements? This can be based on the work breakdown structures. What are the construction tasks to be carried out? And then produce statements explaining how the project task is to be carried out in terms of the sequence as well as in terms of the quality as expected from the relevant tasks. This brings the necessity to work out the work breakdown structures. How do you work out the work breakdown structures? Again, you have to refer to the plans produced by the engineers and then break down the work into many subtasks leading to the constructions of various parts as per required in the plans. From the work breakdown structures, there should be the 3M resource planning. 3M means manpower, machineries, and money. Depending on the amount of resources to be put into the project, the durations to complete certain tasks as per the intended amount as given in the drawings may differ. And then based on the work breakdown structures, you need to consider the sequencing of various construction activities accomplishing the construction project. Arrange them in proper sequence, forecast the durations required based on the amount of resources putting into the project. Then you will work out the master work program. Based on the master work program, you can perform the critical path analysis to evaluate the flexibility of the master work programs produced. This is to get you prepared in the case that the construction progress does not meet exactly the intended progress, so that remediations can be carried out responding to any delays of the project. Based on the master work program, specifically knowing the project activities, then you're going to evaluate the project activities in terms of the effects to the environment. This shall come back to the environmental impact assessment. You can use the Eng-aim matrix for you to evaluate the impacts to the environment, so that those with high impacts should have the pollution preventions and mitigations measures in order to minimize those impacts. To make it simple, the environmental impact assessment comprises two main things: identifying the potential impacts and then evaluating the significance of the impacts. You identify those impacts which are significant, then you have to come up with the solutions to minimize the adverse impact. Normally, you will follow up with these three items: LD, P2, M2, P2, M2s, and BMP. LD, P2s, M2 stand for land disturbing, pollution preventions, and mitigations measures. These are the measures to minimize the impacts related with the work activities that can disturb the land, such as earthwork, excavations, site clearings, and etc. As a result of these land disturbing activities, there can be air pollutions, erosions, slope failures, and etc. You will need to prevent all the adverse impact associated to the land disturbing activities due to the project. The P2M2 refers to the pollutions preventions and mitigations measures. On basis of the evaluations outcome from the EIM matrix, you know the significant impacts as a result of the development, particularly due to the project activities. Now you would like to prevent the pollutions as your top priority. If you can prevent the pollutions, that would be the best. Now, if the pollutions cannot be effectively prevented, you will need to come up with the mitigations measures in order to minimize the impacts as well as the risk of impacts to the environment, and also come up with the best management practice BMP for the works to be carried out. Now, this LD, P2M2, P2M2s and BMPs are the pledge given by the developer to the Departments of Environment regarding the commitment in preventing the pollutions and minimizing the adverse impacts to the environment while carrying out the development project. This will need to be submitted together with the Environmental Impact Assessment Report to the Departments of Environment. There shall be inputs from the Departments of Environment addressing some additional concerns that are not being covered by the Environmental Impact Assessment. These inputs are known as the Conditions of Approval, COA. Now the project proponents or the developer will have to fulfill whatever being proposed for the LD, P2M2, P2M2 and BMP, plus the Conditions of Approval, COA, and then come up with the Environmental Management Plan. This Environmental Management Plan shall have to be carried out during the constructions. And the Environmental Management Plan, EMP, is a legal pledge made by the project proponents or the developer, which later shall be monitored and audited by the Departments of Environment during the executions of the project. Coming back to the Master Work Program here, when the Master Work Program provides the project activities, there shall be analysis in terms of the HIRAC as an important part for the site safety and health planning. HIRAC stands for the hazard identifications, risk assessment and risk control. It is basically an analysis studying the work activities, identifying the potential hazard, forecasting the potential risks, and significant risks shall have to follow up with the control measures, either to prevent the hazard or to minimize the impacts of the hazard. Top priority, it will be to prevent the occurrence of the hazard. It is only when this cannot be achieved, then mitigations measures such as usage of the PPE, personal protective equipment, or administrative controls are to be proposed in order to minimize the impacts due to the hazard. Together with the site safety and health planning, you also need to identify the numbers of the officers required for the site health and safety purposes, such as site safety supervisor, safety and health officer, and contractor safety supervisors. You will need to decide whether the safety and health committees are to be formed, who are the members in the committees, and then work out the safety and health policies, the emergency plans, first aid box and the first aider, and etc. Anything related to the safety and health planning. you will need to fulfill the requirement by the DOSH as the regulation bodies related to the safety and health. All these plannings are later to be translated into the best management practices, BMPs. After that, you need to work out the construction's quality assurance plan, which is another scope in the integrated design project. These construction's quality assurance plans involve the quality management systems, forms, and documentation systems in regulating the qualities of the project works in accordance to the specifications and technical requirements from the structural plan as well as the contract documents. At the same time, we have to incorporate the best management practices for the site safety and health planning, as well as the land disturbing, pollution preventions, mitigations measures, pollution preventions and mitigation measures, and best management practices related to the environmental impact assessment. This shall establish the implementations of the construction works involving various parties in meeting the qualities as stipulated on the technical side, environmental impact side, as well as the safety side, plus the administrative side, in order to ensure the works is carried out smoothly and there is well documentations to trace the record and to quickly trigger alarms in case of any non-compliance, so that immediate response can be carried out to mitigate the problems. This is meant for the monitoring of the work during the constructions. Now that we have covered the bills of quantities, work breakdown structures, master work program, site safety and health planning, tender and contract documents, quality assurance plans, we have one more items to be covered, which is about the project cash flow and revenue. This will have to base on the bills of quantities. The bills of quantities itemize the work in accordance to the technical specifications on basis of the quantities. At the same time, you look into the master work program in terms of the work schedules, that you can forecast the progress of the work over times. Based on the cost bid by the contractor, let's say, knowing when the work shall be completed, associated to every single item of the work, then you can easily forecast the cash outflow. That means the amount of costs involved at different stages of the project, completing different tasks of the project. And then, based on the marketing strategies, you make a reasonable forecast for the sales. The sales forecast has to be realistic, not to be over-optimistic and not to be too pessimistic, so that you can forecast more accurately in terms of the cash inflow. You will forecast the numbers of units to be sold, and then based on the work schedule, refers to the schedule of payment, as the customers shall pay the work being done in accordance to the stages of the project. With that, you can estimate the cash inflow. Based on the information for the cash inflow and outflow, you acquire the project cash flow and then estimate the total revenue of the project. Combining the cash inflow and outflow together, you acquire the net cash flow. From the net cash flow, you can estimate the amount of capital investment required for this particular project. Based on the amount of the capital investment, compare against the profit made from this project you can now compute the return of investment in order to decide whether the relevant investment is worth, at the same time taking into the considerations of the potential risks for the project. And then this is about the financial feasibility. Let's say now the outcome ended up with feasible, which the project is worth investment. Then you have to work out the financing strategies. Where do you acquire the capital for the project? Is it from the loan of the bank, or you do joint ventures, and etc. With that, this gives an overview of the entire integrated design project. What you see here, every single components here are interrelated. There is so much to be done for the integrated design project, which normally the integrated design project is carried out in groups. And then you can foresee that the students normally subdivide their work, concentrating only on their parts. After that, at the end of the semester, they compile individual reports without proper cross-checking between different parts of the works. There should be linkage and close relation between different scope of the works, which normally we expect the students to really fully understand the connections of different scopes as the main objective of doing this integrated design project. You will see all these different scopes here. Most of them you have learned it throughout the semesters of 4 years engineering programs. It is now putting everything together in the integrated design project to demonstrate the linkage. With that, I will strongly encourage the students to really look into the connections. You may refer to this slide before you start doing your integrated design project, so that you know the heads and tails and their connections. I also encourage you to look into this slide at the end of your integrated design project as you are doing the compilations of the report for the entire integrated design project, cross-checking whether there are any mismatch in terms of the informations as well as the assumptions made. Also, after the integrated design project, if you can fully make sense of this entire overview of the integrated design project, that means probably you are now in the right way, having the ability to make sense of the functions of every single scope that you have done in your integrated design project and their relationship to others. This shall be an induction to you before entering the industry. It helps you to quickly pick up while working in the industry under the guidance of your seniors engineers or the professional engineers. Later, we shall look into every different scopes and briefly go through what you need to do for better understandings. All the best to you and happy learning.